The glazed lily, huh? I think I've heard of it before. It's a flower from Liyue, right?
Well, did you know it only blooms at night?
Emilie, you're back!
Exactly as expected.
A flower that only blooms at night. Ah, like the Neelitpala lotus.
Exactly. Although the Neelitpala lotus wouldn't be a good substitute in this scenario. When it's closed, the gaps between the petals are too large. That's why Kyria chose the glaze lily as his mechanism. He would start by preparing an agouti sample.
If applied to the outside, you would still be able to smell a agouti, even in the daytime. If poured into the flower pot, the liquid would seep into the soil. That might prevent the substance from taking effect. There's a sticky substance on the edge of the flower petals. It's one I recognize. If you stick the petals together with slime condensate, then, in the daytime, the glaze lily would act almost like a hidden container.
That's right! He applied a diluted form of slime condensate to the petals to stick them together and enclosed a sample of agouti in the center. That way, the agouti would remain trapped inside during the daytime, unable to seep between the petals and evaporate into the air. This also allowed the culprit to plant the poison well in advance while his targets remained oblivious. However, the diluted slime condensate wouldn't be viscous enough to prevent the petals of the glaze lily from opening at night. So by nightfall, the flower would bloom, thereby forcing the target to inhale the agouti trapped inside.
And Kyria could execute his revenge without having to step foot inside the room during the night.
By the next morning, the sample of agouti would have nearly fully evaporated. The glaze lily would have already closed its petals, and any lingering odor would be concealed by the fragrance of the other flowers in the room.
Wait a second. You're telling me this version of agouti is so toxic, inhaling the minute amount trapped inside a flower is enough to kill a grown man? And how did Edgar even survive ingesting a whole bottle of the stuff?
That's because agouti is just as dangerous now as it was all those years ago. The level of toxicity has never changed. Only a small subset of people are truly at risk.
Ah, you mean people who are sensitive to elemental energy. So it's just some sort of happy coincidence that Sylvain and Lucien are allergic to the stuff? That can't be right. They were involved in the operation all those years ago. If the stuff gave them a bad reaction, they would have known from the very start.
I wouldn't use the word allergic necessarily. It's more like they're susceptible to its effects. But that distinction isn't important right now. You can think of it this way. It's not that Sylvain and Lucien are innately sensitive to elemental energy, but that Kyria found a way to ensure that they would be.
In Fontaine, I experienced how drinking primordial seawater made me more attuned to the element of hydro. But that substance would be hard to get around here. All kinds of essential oils commonly found in alchemical products can temporarily increase elemental affinity. But it would be difficult to force someone to use them without knowing it. The incense I smelled earlier seemed familiar. Thinking back on it, I'm almost certain it was the scent of spirit borneal. In Sumeru, scholars use spirit borneal to aid meditation and stimulate their connection to the Dendro Archon.
Alchemically produced essential oils, the primordial seawater that caused unrest in Fontaine not too long ago. All of those are substances that can heighten your sensitivity to elemental energy.
That stuff gave us a lot of trouble when we first came to Sumeru. Ah, yes. I definitely remember that.
In Sumeru, it's not uncommon to use incense indoors, so its presence wouldn't arouse suspicion. The flowers in the room could also serve to mask the scent.
Flowers were pretty important to this plan, huh? The glazed lily is native to Liwa. It would be completely unnatural to have one here in Sumeru if it weren't for the exhibition. What a coincidence.
Actually, it's not a coincidence at all.
No wonder he was willing to pay a small fortune to rent out the hotel. He probably used the mora Yelena left him, don't you think? That money was supposed to set him free. But in the end, it was just a tool for his revenge.
There's a saying among forensic doctors in Fontaine. Every step you take leaves a mark. But up until this point, we haven't been able to detect any trace of Kiria's activities. That's not because he was coming and going undetected, or because he's some kind of evil spirit, but because he's been disguised as someone else this entire time.
Creating such an intricate mechanism out of a glaze lily, setting up the spirit borneal in advance, and arranging for Sylvain and Lucien to stay at the hotel. It all points to one person, the expert in charge of the entire exhibition. The mora spent to rent out the hotel, the way the Auguste flower was cultivated, the method used to disguise his appearance. It all points to one person, the boy who inherited Yelena's legacy, her younger brother. Kiria and Edgar are one and the same.
But Kiria was only in his teens back then. He wouldn't even be 40 years old by now. Edgar's lived here for so many years. Even if he changed his appearance, going that long without giving anything away, it would be impossible.